welcome everyone. We're just going to wait a few more minutes here just to give time for people to log in.
Yeah, welcome everybody. We're going to let the broadcast populate here. If someone is on a computer, if you don't mind, I'm going to send a note and ask that somebody just acknowledge that we're broadcasting, because I think we are, but it's hard for us to tell. So if somebody can just ping me back in the chat box, no rush. You're probably all very used to the protocol in Zoom. So a couple of housekeeping things. First, welcome everybody for spending a bit of your day with us. We have some really interesting stuff, thankfully, as usual, for the Family Office Insights community. You're most welcome to, as the presentation involves here in the opening remarks, and then throughout the presentation, either ask a question in the chat box, which you can see there at the bottom, or a Q&A. You can raise your hand and go ahead and ask a question. We won't be able to see or hear you, but we'll definitely acknowledge your questions, and as we go along, we'll try to answer them all. We have an hour together from 2:15 to 3:15, depending on how many questions we have. I'm sure Drew would be glad to hang around if there's more. Again, a couple just full disclosure things. We are, in fact, recording this, and so we're recording the presentation, and for the purposes of looking at it after or sharing it with others, we'll be putting it on the Family Office Insights YouTube channel, and you can view it there again if you like, or share it with others. And also, the chat is also recorded in the Q&A, just so you know, so we can reconcile people that may be interested. And then after the webinar, we'll be glad to share your contact information with Drew and his colleagues, so you can be in touch with them directly and get a copy of the presentation and see if there's interest in for yourself in terms of an investor and others that you might know that would be interested in investing. As you know, I'm an investor, many of you know that I'm an investor in a bottled water company, which I've been horrified about in some level because we use plastic bottles, and I haven't quite figured out how to thwart that, being that I have an interest in ocean conservation, but we're working on it. So I don't know much, and even though I've been able to talk to Drew and his colleague BJ about the nature of this type of drink, and I've learned a lot, and you're going to learn quite a bit here, but there's also, as is the case in with many entrepreneurs, not as many as we'd like, I'd say, but in this case, we have a team here that's already exited something of note, and so they have some sense about how to build a business, and so this is the next iteration for them. And so I'm super excited to have Drew present to you today. There's still a bunch of people that were expected to come in, but we're going to get started here. Drew, maybe you can just give us a little bit of background about you and BJ while the attendees populate.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the time. I appreciate you guys all joining today. Along with what he said after the presentation today, I would love to send anyone samples so that they can actually try the product. And then we have all of our P&L and budget and all of our numbers all buttoned up, so we can send that along as well. So just I guess just ping us, or however the process works. We can get all that to you right away, so you can try them this weekend if you'd like. So like Arthur said there, myself and my partner BJ, who's also on this call, he might chime in. He has access to, but I'll probably lead most of it. We've been beverage entrepreneurs just for the past 10, 15 years of our life. We're 36 years old, but pretty much once we got out of college, we started becoming entrepreneurs pretty quickly. Just to kind of give you guys a structure of our meeting, what I'm doing right now, I'll give you a quick background on myself and BJ, and then what I'm going to do is tell you a little bit about the actual product. And then I'll tell you the third part we'll do is just talk about the business and the opportunity. So we'll just cut it up in those three parts. You guys feel free to ask questions throughout the way. If you want to save them, I'll stop every few minutes and ask if you have any. If that's easiest, whatever way works for you is great for me. So back to BJ and myself. Yeah, we've both been friends since college. He was a quarterback in college at Kentucky. I played basketball as a point guard at Eastern Illinois. We were both just buddies and had very similar interests, very kind of A-type personality, go-getter, leaders. Him being a quarterback and me being a point guard, we just had such a good synergy together. And we really always wanted to work together, and finally ended up crossing paths in about 2014 and started to work together as partners. In 2014, BJ was getting out of an exit that Arthur mentioned. He started a company, a product with coffee and coconut water, and he sold that company to the biggest coconut water company in the world, Vita Coco. I'm sure you guys have all heard of Vita Coco or seen it out there. It was a three-year buyout for him. He sold it in 2014, and he was able to work underneath the brand and grow with them for 3 years. It was a very successful exit for him at the time, being as young as he was. At that time, I was exiting an online company myself, and him and I decided at that time we were both getting out of things to start working together. And our first product that we had was a liquor. It was kind of a niche liquor made from a cashew fruit. It's kind of what tequila was in Mexico. It was a similar liquor in India that we brought to the U.S. And it was a very niche liquor, kind of at the time when craft liquors were becoming big in the U.S. And we did that for about a year and a half, and had it throughout the U.S. and a lot of different distributors and Whole Foods and some big stores and places. For us, it was just a little bit too much of a niche of a type of product, and we kind of got to hang it out about a year and a half of being into it. And just we're type of guys that, being young and hustlers and taking on a big risk like that, we definitely want to get the reward out of it. And we didn't think that liquor really had the opportunity for us. So we pivoted from that liquor and started a cocktail mixer company, which is called Minute Mixology. I ironically have it right here. So it's basically a single serve cocktail mixer. So if you wanted to make a margarita, for example, you mix, it's kind of like a single stick packet, like a Crystal Light. You mix one of these with a shot of tequila and water, and you can have a margarita. So they're very good because they come in a stick pack for small situations. So tailgate, barbecue, camping, flights, traveling, things like that. It's a very cool niche product. We do sell it in big retailers, but hotel mini bars and things like that, it has a huge, bigger life in those type of atmospheres. So when we pivoted to that, it was still within the wine and spirits industry, and we'd had a little bit more experience, and then ran with that for about a year and a half, and it does well, and it's a cool product, but also somewhat niche. When we started that, we didn't dream our whole lives of starting a cocktail mixer company. It was more so we had to pivot kind of quickly. Some companies pivot once or twice until they get to where they want to be. So that was more of a pivot for us. However, it gave us a platform to kind of grow and have some revenue and not have to pivot so quickly again, and kind of make our next decision based off of, more about our experience in the market and whatnot. So ultimately, now after having this cocktail mixer for, we had that for about a year and a half, 2 years on the market. At that time, we were building our ultimate innovation, which we kind of got to here, which was this Rosé Spritz. So together, BJ and I have been beverage entrepreneurs for the better half of our adult life here. Between, non-alcoholic, before that had bars and restaurants, and then we came in the alcohol space and have had a liquor cocktail mixer, and then now this Rosé Spritz here. We are 2-time winners of the BevNet Best New Beverage Champions. Only people to ever do it twice and win it twice. I would say if you go to any of these trade shows and kind of ask around in some of the beverage communities about our names, they're very well respected. We definitely have worked with all the different retailers and distributors across the U.S. and I've kind of just honed in on being kind of young beverage entrepreneurs with some experience on our belt. So that's just a quick background about us, just so you guys know what a lot about the project is about who's behind it. And I think if you ask anyone about us, including our friends, family, and colleagues, we definitely have a good name about being hustlers and kind of knowing what we're doing in the beverage area. We're still very humble and would love to learn more. So, but we do a good job. So that's a bit about ourselves. Now I'm going to jump right in and tell you guys about the product now. I got to our kind of our path of how we got here. Now I'm just going to tell you some basic facts about the product, and then we'll jump right into kind of the story and how we're doing with everything. So right here, everyone I'm sure on this call knows what a wine spritzer is. Basically what we've done with our company is we've kind of reinvented the wine spritzer. It's three simple ingredients, same thing it was 30 years ago. We've taken wine, sparkling water, and just a tad bit of real fruit to create a wine spritzer, a rosé-based wine spritz. So if I was right here sitting with a bottle of wine and put in a little bit of wine with some sparkling water and took a fruit garnish, that's exactly what's inside this can. It's just a ready-to-drink all-in-one. Years ago, it was the Bartles and James and the Barefoot wine and the different glass sugary syrupy ones. We're kind of like a same type of innovation, just with cans and kind of better for you ingredients. Where we saw the problem, everyone wants to, when you start a company, what's the problem you're solving? For us right now, as you guys know, most wine comes in bottles for the most part, glass bottles, and most wine's 12% for the majority of it. So as consumers right now, most of the wine and spirits and consumers out here that drink wine and spirits, they're shifting more to these kind of lower alcoholic beverage canned offerings. The biggest ones out there right now are some of the White Claw and Truly and these other just kind of hard teas and hard kombuchas, and that's kind of where the industry is moving. So we saw an opportunity to take some of what's happening out there and bring it to the wine category, and that's when we launched the Rosé Spritz. Now, I said it before, three simple ingredients: rosé wine, sparkling water, fruit, non-GMO, gluten-free ingredients. If you guys see the can and the look and the feel of that, that's kind of speaking to this generation's version of what's out there and what they're used to seeing in our beverages, these quick can and convenient ways to drink things. We launched first with the rosé, and very soon here, I'll get into this later, but we're going into other like sangria, Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, but we started with rosé. Right now we have a few different flavors. So I have a pineapple, a watermelon, a black cherry, a variety pack. We also have a pure rosé, which basically has no flavor. That one would just be sparkling water and rosé. So right now we've kind of taken this innovation into the rosé lane, and we have a suite of 5% rosé spritzes with different flavors and also a traditional one. And then we will be getting more into just other wine, traditional kind of 5% spritzes with other ones. The ingredients that you basically these days, you have to build your product to kind of adhere to the rest of the industry. As you guys know, the biggest movement going on in the last 15, 20 years is kind of like the food movement, right? There's like everyone's figuring out what's in their food, and now you have to be non-GMO and gluten-free and kind of build your product to where it's clean, quote unquote, and kind of better for you. So that's exactly what we do with our product here in this line of all the spritzes. They're all Whole Foods approved is what you call it. You have to build your product to where if you ever want it at Whole Foods, it has the ingredients that fit that criteria. So they're all natural. When you taste one of our spritzes, you can taste the fruit just like if you bit out of a fruit. That's what people say. We paid attention to quality and using real ingredients. Very quickly, why does it make sense? There's a few key main points why it's so easy. And as you guys know, having a product for the masses, you definitely want to be easy to understand from all levels. Main reason we're so easy is because, again, people know what wine spritzers are. People know what Aperol spritzes are. If you went to a restaurant and there was a whiskey spritz on there, you'd probably just think it's whiskey and a little bit of water and a spritz. So really the concept of a spritz isn't new. It's pretty easy to understand. So just adding a rosé in front of a spritz is very easy for everyone to get. This is important. Everything else on the market, anyone on this call, if you go to your local bar, your restaurant, your corner 7-Eleven, anywhere you go, everything else that's in a can like this, that's 5%, is either beer-based, malt-based, hard tea-based, kombucha-based, coffee-based. There's different bases out there. We're the main people that are using rosé as our base, and that's our biggest difference, but we are in cans like this. We're in the same distribution channel as these major beer companies. So Miller Lite, all these other ones I keep mentioning, the only difference between mine and theirs, we're both 5%. They just have a different liquid. But we're using everything else the same way that their models work. We just plug in ours in those type of models. Simple ingredients, ready to drink. So I want you guys to be very clear that we are not a canned wine. We are a wine product that's in a can, but canned wine is simply when you take rosé and you just put it in a can. And a lot of people think because this is a new space with this canned wine stuff, that if you see us with the word rosé in it, that we're just a canned wine, right? You just want to throw you in a category. But we're not a canned wine. We're ready to drink. So wine is just pouring wine in a can. Ours is rosé, sparkling water, and fruit. So it's a few elements together in one. So it's a ready to drink. It's not a canned wine. It's less percentage. So these are a few different things. And why does it make sense? It's easy. I just went through them all. This is our competitive kind of advantage and analysis, I guess you could say. We don't have a lot of direct competitors that are kind of new age wine spritzers. We were ahead of the curve. To give you an example, just this year, after we've already been out, Miller Coors came out with their own version of a wine spritzer, and then Barefoot came out with their own kind of wine spritzer seltzer. These were both after we had already launched. So we're really ahead of the curve, and we already have shelf space next to all the biggest guys because we came out before them and we were kind of earning our spot already. But these are some of our competitors here that you see up top. For example, if you go to two of them over, Truly is one of the biggest beverage businesses right now out there next to White Claw. That's what everyone's drinking right now. And as you can see, they have a Truly Rosé one right there. Basically, they're, and they sell a ton of those. It's one of their top flavors. However, that does not use any rosé. It's basically a malt beverage that they just make pink can and make it look pink and put some grape kind of flavoring in there and call it like a rosé flavor one. And they sell a lot of those. However, if you look on the side of like, why are we different than them or why are we better? Well, we're rosé based and they're not. They're kind of selling the pinkness of the category. So we've kind of, what we've obtained is that there's proof that consumers are drinking a lot of these 5% rosé products, and we're the only one out of any of these that is actually using the real product of rosé. So I'll get into this later, but this is just a brief background about
Hey, Drew?
Sure.
Mind if I ask a question I think others are thinking about? In this competitive analysis, where does White Claw fall in this? What is up? I admit that I've only heard of it. I don't know what it is, but I do know that it's mentioned quite a bit. How is it different than what you're doing?
Well, actually, so that's a good question, and I should really just separate them very early on here. I only mention them because this is, when I mention, I'm talking to you guys in a very broad sense, because I don't want to assume that anyone on here just knows it so granular that I can just talk in a very, in my own lane. But in a broad sense, White Claw is probably the category leader that just busted down the door in this kind of new lower ABV kind of canned beverages space. So they're owned by the people that do Mike's Hard Lemonade. There's whoever owns them, Corona or Miller Coors. It's one of the biggest companies out there, and they essentially took a seltzer water and made an alcoholic seltzer water. So it's basically a healthy kind of seltzer water alcoholic version. It is not my direct competitor because I'm wine based and I'm a wine spritzer. Now, when I show you these other but they're kind of, because White Claw and Truly, sometimes they have a rosé flavor, quote unquote. So they're basically claiming to have a 5% alcoholic rosé product, right? So they're kind of a competitor, but more so this other one to the right called Movo, that is my direct competitor. Pampalone, that is my direct competitor. Those are wine-based spritzers that sit next to me in the wine section. On my other side of me being wine-based, I'm rosé-based. So I only mention that Truly Rosé. They're basically like the White Claw seltzer, you know what I mean? They're like a seltzer claiming to be rosé. However, what they're showing you is that there's a lot of consumers that are grabbing that 5% rosé can and drinking it, wishing that there was probably rosé in it because they're claiming it. So anyways, this is just it's a great question. White Claw is just the same as Truly that you see here, and they are a hard seltzer. So it's a malt-based beverage. It's not wine. But they did kind of bust down the door and become the biggest kind of leader of showing people that, hey, no one's drinking beer anymore. They'd rather prefer these little better for you kind of canned beverages. And so the only difference between mine, as you'll see on the left here, is mine's just a different base. It's the same consumer grabbing all these. You'll even see Smirnoff right there. Smirnoff has that Smirnoff seltzer. It's called Raspberry Rosé. They actually have 4 of them that come in a variety pack, and it's called 4 Ways to Rosé. And it's very pink, and it's on every grocery store in America right now. And it's not rosé based though. There's 0 rosé in that product right there. And consumers are buying it and drinking it every day, and they're grabbing it thinking it's kind of an angle on rosé. So ultimately, I don't want to confuse you too much, but there's a lot of these 5% beverages out there, some of them being hard seltzers, some of them being malt-based, and ours is rosé wine-based. And other than that, a lot of them are similar in how they look, the stores that they're in, and whatnot. Does that kind of answer it?
Yeah, super helpful. And then one other thing, and you can get to it or whenever you feel like it, or you might be getting to it, is the trend of people why there's a trend for these beverages. Some empirical data that you might have compiled that just, aside from the evidence that people are buying it, at some point, if you could share the evidence of that would be awesome.
Yeah, I have plenty of info on that, but the basic broad answer to that, it's basically kind of going back to, in a broad sense, like America is figuring out what's in their food, and that trend just came over to the liquor space. So if you think of all the best products out there, if you launch a new product today, it doesn't matter if it's a juice, if it's a bread, if it's whatever food it may be, you really have to adhere to. People care now what's in their ingredients now. There's social media, there's cameras, there's 2020. So much more people just care what's in their drinks and beverages. And so any product that you pick up these days, you're going to see on the front, it's going to say kind of a calorie count call out. It's going to say they're, if they're using saturated fat and other things, it's basically the new standard is having products that adhere to, hey, this is a cleaner product. Of course, there's the Coca-Colas of the world and your Twinkies that still are going to sell in certain markets. But if you want to get ahead of the curve and where people are going in general, people are starting to care more about their health. And because of that, that now is in the liquor space. And proof of that is because Miller Lite and Coors Light, guess what? They don't even sell these White Claws and Trulies at every bar in Chicago right now are selling more volume than Miller Lite and Bud Light. And that's not because the Miller Lite and Bud Light aren't putting enough money to throw out every ad. And if you've seen the Super Bowl ads, they're fighting over corn syrup and who uses corn syrup. That's because they're trying to throw the blame and pin the other person and show them that they're healthier. Because they're trying to grab the industry back from where they're going. They're leaving because they're looking for, they lost all, and Bud Light and Miller Lite are losing millions right now because they didn't innovate quick enough. And the consumer's proof of that because they're not buying them anymore. They're buying these new White Claws and Trulies. So now Bud Light just came out with their own seltzer. I'm sure you guys have seen commercials, Bud Light Seltzer, what is it? So now all the biggest companies are following suit because they're late. So to answer your question, basically is the consumers are leading the charge and they always will. I saw this coming and most people did because it was happening with food and now it just came over to liquor. So there's more actual data to back it up, but the bottom line is that consumers just care more. And Bartles and James, they use sugar and syrup and all this other stuff. So if you want to get a wine spritzer, it needed to be redone. You know what I mean? So that's kind of
Yep, super helpful.
Cool. So that's just about the product. Now I'm going to go into, very laid back. Arthur, please feel free to mediate and ask questions because I actually like that. I feel like I talk too much if I don't have that here and there. But I'm going to go directly into now the business. We've started it. It's been about 1.5 years since we launched it. I'll give you guys some of the quick numbers up top, and then we'll go into it. Since we started it just over 1 year ago, we've done about $600,000 total in sales. This year so far, we've done a little over $300,000 this year. We're up 400% from last year. This year, we should do $1.5 to $2 million in revenue. The COVID whole thing, I was saying at the very beginning, we kind of dodged a bullet there. Alcohol sales in general are up a lot more than they were last year. And wine in general is one of the higher ones over spirits and beer. Basically, it's kind of a pandemic-proof thing. I mean, people are still drinking at home and even more, So really, we dodged a big bullet on that. But those are just kind of the highlights there. $600,000 since we've started to date. $300,000 this year, up 400%. This round, we're raising $1 million on a $7 million value. We've secured some of that. Those are the high-level highlights. Now, let me go directly into now the why we need capital and kind of our story. We launched this brand 1 year ago. Our first 2 markets were Chicago and Vegas. I lived in Chicago. My partner, BJ, that's on the call, lived in Vegas. It just made the most sense. Those are 2 big cities to launch a beverage in, so they worked as far as good platforms. And this is how we launch any of our business, right? You first want to prove it in one market before you can now expand that, take that blueprint to other markets. Chicago and Vegas, what we did is we were able to launch it in both of those cities. We know them very well. We've done other products in them. So we were able to get the 2 best distributors in those cities. Okay, and having a good distributor is everything in this game. Okay, so in Vegas, we have Southern Wine and Spirits. That's the biggest liquor and wine distributor in the U.S. They carry every product that you guys probably would drink and that's in your cabinet. Your Tito's vodka, your Jack Daniels, your top wines, everything. They're the distributor of that. If you don't get with those guys, you're not able to go to the stores that they go to, and be it in the salesmen's, and the salesmen are selling you to the same places they're selling those products. So it's very key in this business for us to have a distributor, or else I can't even get in a 7-Eleven or the Cool Bar. So Vegas, Southern Wine and Spirits. Chicago, I got Miller Coors. So those are 2 of the best national distributors you can get. What I did is, once we got good distributors, you now take that product and for 6 months, you use your distribution to get that in every different channel that you can, and you start to learn about your brand and your product. So what I mean by that is those distributors, they're already delivering Miller Lite, Coors Light, Corona, White Claw, Truly. They're already delivering these products to 7-Eleven, Target, the Buffalo's, all the bars and restaurants. They're delivering to the concert venues. So, for them to bring on my product, I have to have a cool enough product. They don't just bring on any entrepreneur's product to their truck. They don't have room for that unless it's going to sell for them. So for me to even get a chance on these distributors early is a testament to the type of product and brand we built to start with. Then what you got to do is get in their hands and get it out there, right? So what we did is in Chicago and Vegas in our first 6 months, we got it into all the local bars, the restaurants. It's at Chicago O'Hare Airport. We did all the local events and concerts, 7-Eleven, grocery stores. Anywhere someone is drinking wine or booze, we got our product in that atmosphere. And then what you're able to do is now learn about your product. How's the consumer buying it? How are they reacting to it? Do we need to make some changes to it? How does the packaging talk to them? Do they enjoy the flavor of it overall? And this doesn't happen over 1 or 2 months. Again, this is 6 months of you just really intact and hustling this product and figuring out what is the consumer saying and how is it working, right? From there, we always, and this is all of our brands that we do, because that's the most organic way to see if it's going to work, is get it out there, put it in the consumer's face and get their trial on it. After that 6 months, we kind of made some adjustments with some of the packaging, made some adjustments with some of the tasting, and then really now had a blueprint for how to now sell this Rosé Spritz within the marketplace, right? So then after that, we're able to now take that into 2020 with where we're at now. We've now expanded to 13 different states in the U.S. with kind of the same blueprint. We're all in the Midwest here. I'm in Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, kind of all up in the Midwest, and we're all up in the East Coast right now. So New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, North Carolina, Georgia, different places over there. I'm not just going there and like trying to spend money to get it out there. I'm only going here because I have big retailers now that are bringing me on to their store. So the name of this game is you want to get in retailers. That's where you get volume at. So right now in the Midwest, I'm in, the Meijer stores. They're over 5 states. We're in the Albertsons Jewel stores. We just got into the Kroger chain, Circle K, 7-Eleven. Once these people give you an order and say, hey, Drew, we want to put your Rosé Spritz in our stores, we now have to expand to those states to support that growth. So now, we started Chicago, Vegas, fast forward, now going into our year 2 here now, we're basically in 13 different states with over about 30, 40 different distributors. All of our distributors are Miller Coors, Anheuser-Busch, Southern Wine and Spirits, all the top distributors. And our retailers now, I was telling Arthur this, when you're a company like ours, they don't put this in Target day one. You have to obviously show them that you're worthy of being in there. So now is the time I'm getting most of my retailers. They're just now starting to come on. In the first 6 months, it's unless you're Miller Coors or some of the big guys, they can just put a product in no matter what it is, and they can get it right in. So we're just now getting to hit really our stride of some of these big, large retailers right now because we've only had it out there a year. So anyways, that's kind of a brief overview there of just a snapshot, and I'm going to dive into it here of why it's all working now. So the biggest component of why this is working for us and why this is a good time to invest is because there's 3 prongs that are involved in our business. And all 3 of these prongs are very important, okay? And it's on this slide right here. There's customers, there's retailers, and there's distributors. So each one of these has to work for this all to work, okay? If you have one of these not working, the whole thing doesn't work in our business, okay? So first and most importantly is the customer. You have to have a customer that wants to drink your product and enjoys your product. It has to be well-timed. It has to be on trend. It has to be in an area that's not crowded. It has to be. So what we have is a product that customers love. From the look of our branding to being one of the first new age wine spritzers to people, because of the rosé being pink and our branding of this and this new age social media, people sharing this organically. If you were it's like in a juice in our product, if you go to any of our distributors and you put ours next to any of our competitors blindly, the whole place will almost always pick ours on its taste. So anyways, customer is one thing we've really nailed down. If anything, if we had more manpower behind us, basically I'm getting at, we're kind of a very good space with our customers. Okay. Customers love our product. If it's not coming off the shelf though, it doesn't matter. Right. So then you got your retailers who are the targets, the bars, the restaurants, the stores, and how are they selling the product and how does it fit within their atmosphere? And with retailers, we're one of the top selling, right now, all of our retailers, we're one of the top 3 selling wine spritzers that are out there. And of our competition I'm showing you, we have a pink product. It's in a new space with these canned wines that people are going to with Better For You. The retailers overall, it's pulling very well, which is important. And then the last part of this is the distribution channel, which I said before. For all of our distributors like Miller Coors and Anheuser-Busch, last year, none of them made $1 single off of a rosé-based product. And this is very important. So the money that they were making last year before I came along was not off it. They were making it from beer. So they were making it from beer. They were making it from malt liquor and beverages like the White Claw Truly. So when I came along for them, it was a new stack of revenue that didn't take out of any of their other stacks of revenue. I wasn't, if they bring out a new beer, it pulls from what they were doing in their other beers. I brought them a new category. They didn't pull from anything else and only brought them a new stack of revenue. So customers like it, the retailers are selling it very well, and you have distributors that are very, very happy to take my product and sell it because it's bringing them new revenue and they don't have any competition, and it fits within their model. You know, they're already selling canned beverages that are 5%. It's just a different liquid inside. So they're just like, I could pop this in, make more revenue, and it's trending, and he has stores. And so really all across the board, when you're growing a brand like ours, you have to have these three, me and my partner call it, when you set up the web, this web has to all work together. If the retailer's not pulling your product off the distributor shelf, then Miller Coors does not want me to be with them. They can replace me with someone else. So, it all has to work together for this thing to continue to take it other places and to really grow it to be big. It has to snowball together, and all has to work together. So let me continue on. And Arthur, at any time, feel free to chime in.
Actually, you're going to probably get to this too, but for the uninformed me,